The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast All You Can Eat. It is the show about deliciousness, and I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal. Welcome. It is Wednesday night here in New York City, coming to you live, actually, from New York City. On the 5th day of December, 2018. Lovely day here in town, looking at 40 degrees, clear skies. And it's not quite winter yet. But that's okay, it's nice. And I'm happy to be here with you. Excited about tonight's show for a variety of reasons, not the least of which that we have a special guest this evening, Allison Napios. Allison is the senior editor of Wine Spectator magazine, which I have said before, and I will repeat again, is the most prestigious wine publication here in these United States of America. Excuse me. And what a great time to be talking with Allison, because, you know, let's face it, we're in party season. This is prime time, December, leading into the holidays and the new year. And Allison is a expert on all things having to do with wine and sparkling wine and champagne. So we have plenty to talk about with Allison. Before we get to that, a couple of subjects from the news this week. One is going to be about cheese. I think we have to speak about French fries. There's going to be a little mention here of tuna and then pizza. I just want to start off with the whole cheese thing because why? I'm fortunate enough that oftentimes I am sent products or things like that to sample, and I give credit to those people that send that kind of stuff for me, knowing, incidentally, that I can, and I would report on it one way or the other. And so I suppose it takes some modicum of risk to send a product off and go, here, tell us what it is that you think, knowing that I'm going to be telling a lot of people in this case. And so this cheese came in, and I want to say, yeah, it's actually called Truly, Truly, Truly grass-fed. So the cheese comes in, packaged very nicely, simple. And I don't know, I opened up, there's two different kinds, and they're both cheddar. One is an aged cheddar, the other is one was aged and one was sharp cheddar. So what I would say about my cheese preferences, just to begin with here, is if I were going to throw a party and I were having people over and I were going to put some cheeses out for them to enjoy with your wine and your champagne or whatever, cheddar cheese would not be on my list of the top, however many, 5 cheeses, let's say, that I would put out. I would have a Parmesan Reggiano, also referred to as the king of cheeses. Gotta love that. Plus, you can get it at Costco. And as you know, I am the Costco ho. I would have perhaps a. I'm a fan of the French Gruyere or the Comté. The Comté is available at Costco, by the way, because I went to cooking school and that was. They always served the Gruyere, and it was great. Just love it. So both of those are kind of hard cheeses. So then you move into, well, what would we have if we were going to break it up a little bit and perhaps have some softer cheeses? And then you start to think of the obvious ones, right? There's Brie, there's going to be your Camembert, and all those others. There's just a whole range of beautiful kind of like the cheeses that run, or at least are I don't know, were they semi-hard or semi-soft? Whatever they are, they're not hard like the ones that I'm choosing, which is to say the Reggiano and the Gruyere. And then maybe, you want to put something in that's a little more intense, a little bit more bold in its flavoring. Your blue vein cheeses. Here I'm thinking about kind of like Stilton coming out of the UK, or perhaps a Gorgonzola from Italy. Love that. I love that. Or your blue vein Roquefort from France. I mean, these are intense. I can almost smell almost the kind of, I hate to use the word because it doesn't sound tasty, but like there's an ammoniation. There's something that happens in those cheeses that gives them an intensity. Anyway, what am I trying to say? That I don't think that cheddar would be on the list of cheeses that I would normally serve. So there is my pre-existing, bias. I also would say, though, that I like and again, I guess because maybe I favor the harder cheeses, I like a Gouda, but particularly if it's aged, right? So I open up this truly grass-fed cheese, and it's a cheddar, and I started the one that was going to be not the aged one, but the sharp one. And I take a bite of it while it's still cold, and I think, oh, this tastes good. And the longer that it sits out there, and the more often and that I go back to have another piece of it, the more I'm thinking, this cheese is just purely delicious. And so then I say to my kid, I call her my kid. That's pretty funny because she's not a kid really, and she's a young adult woman. And I say, hey, check out this cheese. And she tastes it and has the same reaction I do. And the reaction is, whoa, this is really just delicious. Like, I want to ascribe like other fancier terms to it. I want to be able to describe the flavor in a way that goes well beyond the generic, it's delicious. But here's the thing. It's just delicious. I found it to be kind of like easy to, what's the way I was trying to describe it? It's just like it goes down easy. Like that's what I want to say about this cheese. Now, that said, I go do a little homework on the cheese, and it comes from Ireland. And not only does it come from Ireland, which I want to get to here, but it's Ireland is special. Here's what I want to say. I was fortunate enough to be invited to spend a week over there at some point on a trip to actually kind of sample the Irish dairy products, mostly beef. But the point is that I'm traveling around this country that I had never been to. I'm only going back like 2 years here, and we see a lot of the country. And I'm one thing just totally stands out, which is that this is the greenest country I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's 85% green. They call it the Emerald Isle for a reason. If you look at it from above, all you would see was green. Everywhere you go, there's grass. These people love grass. They take care of grass. They literally watch it grow, and they take super special care of their cows. Like, it's meaningful to them. They are well advanced in terms of most countries, both in terms of how they take care of their actual grass, because it is their most precious resource, and it's perfect. And the conditions to grow grass are perfect. And so what do you see all over Ireland? You see cows. And cows are going to serve a couple of purposes, one of which is they're going to make a nice steak, grass-fed. And the other is that they're going to make some nice dairy products, including cheese. So I was not surprised to see that this cheese that I found so delicious was coming from Ireland, where cows graze freely on pasture for hundreds and hundreds of days. The product is non-GMO, animal welfare approved, grass-fed, great cheese. So that's the long story short. Available at your Safeway, and you get it on Amazon, at giant supermarkets, etc., etc. I guess the place to look for it is Truly, I must have it here somewhere, but yeah, Truly grass-fed. Truly grass-fed cheese from happy cows. Here it is. Yeah, trulygrassfed.com. Oh, yeah, that's a big surprise. Trulygrassfed.com. Thanks for that. Thanks for being part of the show. Great cheese, trulygrassfed.com. Now, I also mentioned that we would talk about French fries because this was the bad news this week. If you hadn't seen it, maybe by now you have. This was sad news, actually. Really, it was like well, let's put it this way: it was sad news. Some people would be upset if they ordered a small fry and only got a small order of fries and only got 6 French fries. But one college professor claims it's the ideal serving size to keep your meal healthier. It's not just any old college professor. This is a professor from the Harvard School of Public Health, called the potato a starch bomb. In a recent New York Times article, suggested that if you must indulge in an order of fries, you must consider limiting the portion size to 6. Okay. This is just stupid. I'm sorry. Look, have fries or don't have fries. I don't think I've met a human being in my life that's okay with 6 fries. More so, that even has the willpower to have 6 fries and call it a day. Because if I knew any of those people, there's a good chance they would not be my friends. Here's what they're saying on Twitter about 6 fries. I eat 6 fries in one breath, said one user. And here's another comment on Twitter. Seriously, same thing. I average 6 fries a bite. Even though potatoes pack a lot of starch, they can be healthy when prepared properly. A medium unsalted plain baked potato with skin has only 160 calories and is naturally fat and cholesterol free. But once you deep fry that in a load of oil, obviously it's going to boost calories, fat, and sodium, which is why people are basically dying from heart-related diseases. Anything can be eaten healthily if it's eaten mindfully. If you eat French fries that way, you will probably be satisfied with 10, says Esther McGee, dietitian and author of 25 nutrition books, who has no clients because nobody is satisfied with just 10 French fries. All right, so before we move over, there were 2 quick things here before we move over to Allison and talk about wine for the upcoming holiday season. I see a headline today or this week that came in and it made me laugh, so I share it with you people, all in the interest of having fun around the subject of food. The headline of the article is millennials don't. No, what is the headline of the article? Okay, here's what it says. Hear ye, it hath been decreed. Millennials are freaking killing canned tuna. Said millennials don't even own can openers. So the problem here with that the tuna business is the canned tuna business is not doing well. And they're not blaming the actual product inside the can. Rather, it's because millennials don't own can openers. I thought I would point that out. My own story with tuna, I have told before. My mother made those tuna sandwiches, sent me to school with them. I never ate them because by the time I got to school, 2 hours or and a half after she made those sandwiches, the bread was soaking wet. And, the whole lunchbox smelled like, cat food. So I kind of assumed that the reason canned tuna wasn't doing well is because kids had the same reaction to it that I had to my father eating sardines. Like the smell was just horrendous. But it turns out that millennials are not buying can openers because I guess things aren't really sold in cans. So the tuna industry has come up with a solution, which is that they're packaging tuna fillets in bottles now. And finally, I will just move to this one last thing. I had mentioned pizza only because I see an article in today's New York Post about a guy, Nev Schulman. If you don't know him, he's the star of a program called Catfish. I don't know why he was in there. He must have a good PR agent, but that's neither here nor there. He was making suggestions about maybe some last minute things that you could throw into that could be a gift. And whatever else he said, the one that caught my attention was that if you can't think of anything else, the best holiday gift, he said, was to have a pizza delivered to your friend's house. Just thought, no, I'll tell you something. Yeah, because his theory was like, who's going to be disappointed when a pizza shows up at their door? I don't disagree with that. And of course, if you want you want to spend more generously, you could throw some toppings on the thing. I just thought there was something about that that was interesting. Okay, let us not waste any more time and move on to the most important discussion of this evening as we move into the holiday season here. We are delighted to have with us again. I love that. I'm glad that you're here. Allison Napius. Allison from Wine Spectator, as I told you, I can't think of a more prestigious publication, and Allison is an authority, been the senior editor of Wine Spectator for 6 years, and has a particular expertise in the wines from Alsace and Beaujolais and also French Champagne, so that works perfectly, and is also the tasting coordinator. Allison, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me back.
I am super glad, no joke, to have you back, because I love chatting with you about this, and part of it is because you are like a legit expert, foremost, and I know virtually nothing about this subject. So I represent all of us out there in the world who basically don't know what we're doing when it comes to, wine and champagne, and it becomes especially important this time of year.
Well, you know that you like wine and you like champagne, so you're my kind of person right away, and so are all the people listening to you.
Excellent. I am glad to hear it. And what I wanted to say, and I'm not joking about that, I feel like, one of the biggest kind of schisms, if you will, is the difference between those who really know and those of us who don't. So the way I kind of approach it is, I do kind of know, I guess I kind of know what I like. Like I know the kind of stuff that I like, and I when I taste it, my palate is basically, I really like that, or, that's not as good. But I think that speaks for a lot of us. Like when it comes to this holiday season, Allison, basically in general, I want to put you on the spot because that's what we're here for. Like in general, what should we know? Like if we're having people over and we're going to be serving, champagne, that's an investment. Like how do we know that we're getting the right one? Let's start off this thing in a general way.
Well, I think you're correct. It's a real challenge. The world of wine is expanding just more and more. I started at Spectator in 2000, and we just see more new labels and new producers. And it's a challenge to go through all of that. But it's also the exciting thing is there's even more potential of finding those wines that you really enjoy, and discovering that world can be exciting. So in terms of what you need to know, I think that probably everyone would agree a starting place is what's your price range, Think about how much you want to spend on something. And then, like everybody all the time, we want to get the most bang for our buck. So that's really where the expertise comes in. Wine Spectator is a great source. We have a wonderful app called our Wine Ratings Plus that you can download, and you have access to our 380,000 reviews at your fingertips.
Nice.
But then also when you're in the store, once you have kind of that price range, don't be afraid to go talk to the person there and say, this is about how much I want to spend. Here's some other wines that I like, and see what they can recommend for you. Because, it's a little bit different in every place, what they're going to have to offer. And you need to give them some guidance, and by giving them some other examples, by telling them what you like about those wines, you're going to find people who will guide you on your path.
Let me ask you this, because I'm curious about this, because I think that's obviously it's a smart suggestion. You don't know, and you go in and you go, here's what I'm looking for. I guess my question to you is this: do you think that the average wine store employee really kind of knows, or is it more like they're in a position where they kind of are leaning you to a particular selection that works for them?
It's a good question, a fair question. I think if you're in a good retail shop, you're going to find people who are there because they're excited about wine. And, they're probably going to point you towards something that they've hopefully tasted themselves, or that they have a reason that they're interested in it. And hopefully it's not just because, they make the most money off of it. Are there going to be people out there like that? I suppose so. But in general, wine is it's something that people are usually very passionate about. They really love, they're interested in. So hopefully most of the time you're interacting and tapping into those sort of people.
Yeah, and I think also I would just add on top of that it's in their best interest to actually kind of get you something that you like, so you come back as a customer.
Of course.
Yeah, there's that piece too. All right, so I did a little bit of due diligence, as you can imagine. I see that some of the last maybe 3 pieces or columns that you've written have to do with champagne. So let's talk about champagne, because there's this is it, man. We got Christmas parties coming up. We got Christmas dinner. We got New Year's. What do we need to know about champagne? For example, if we take budget out of the equation, just for a second, just bracket that for a second. My assumption would be we got to get something literally from the region of Champagne, and the least risk are the brands that we kind of known, like that we know already, like Dom Perignon. So what are the basic rules that the average consumer wants to know about champagne quality and that kind of thing?
Well, I guess I should point out that you're exactly correct. When you're talking about true champagne, it is from the region of Champagne in France. Everything else is technically sparkling wine.
Right.
So what makes champagne special is from the Champagne area, but it's also made in what is known as the traditional or the champagne method. So basically, in that method, the bubbles are created in the bottle that you as a consumer receive. So that sounds weird, but think about the other alternative is the bubbles being added in like you do with soda, basically, or in the other case, it's called the tank or Charmat method, where it's a big pressurized tank and the fermentation that happens all in one place in this tank, and then it gets put in the bottle. So why does this make a difference? It's basically about texture at that point. So for champagne and wines that are made in this champagne method, you have it's just kind of a finer bubble when it's actually happening in this bottle that you receive, versus a kind of creamier, softer bubble in the tank or Charmat method.
Right.
And then you get to kind of the extremes of that, which might be like kind of a Coca-Cola type bubble, which is not really what you're looking for in your sparkling wine because it's a little bit aggressive on your palate. And if you wanted that, you would just have some soda instead.
Right. But so question number 1 is, it would be totally reasonable on a personal taste level to actually prefer non-champagne or Cremant like sparkling wines. Like your palate may actually prefer one of those, and I don't have like a brand,
yeah, absolutely.
Versus actually a champagne, which is finer and more delicate and more whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, my focus recently has been champagne, but I tasted close to 600 sparkling wines this year.
Wow.
And about half of them were from places outside of Champagne.
Right.
Now, many of those use the same traditional method of production, but they have different factors that come into play, different grape varieties, different climate that makes it, either more balanced towards the fruit side, more balanced towards kind of a mineral character. And the Charmat tank method that I was talking about, the most popular example is Prosecco. And that creates kind of this easier drinking sparkling wine. And obviously a lot of people love it because Prosecco is hugely successful in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, I totally get that. Let me ask you this out of nowhere, because from the food perspective, like when you're drinking champagne, tell me, like for fun, it's a tough question. I don't know how you distinguish, I don't know what it must be like to be someone that professionally tastes champagne. But so the question that I'm going to ask you is, if you were drinking champagne for fun, not for a living, if you were doing it at home, what would you ideally be eating with it?
Well, I don't even have to theorize on this because I regularly drink champagne at home and have food with it. I think actually going back to your earlier topic of cheese, I actually think that champagne is great with cheese, Parmesan cheese in particular, because the kind of saltiness of the cheese really works beautifully with champagne and sparkling wine in general. I like to have it with pâté and other kind of appetizer type foods. But champagne is definitely something that you can push through into the meal. So if you're starting off with a celebratory toast, you don't have to stop after the toast. People can enjoy it with appetizers, with chicken, with fish. I've even had some rosé champagne with like filet mignon or duck, that sort of thing. So it's a wine in its own right, and it's obviously very much tied to celebration, but there's no reason that wine, sparkling wine, and champagne can't be served with food as well.
All right, so that actually, okay, is a super important insight for people who are food and drink people. We blast through another kind of preconception here about champagne being served early on versus being a perfect accompaniment for food. And I will tell you from my own experience that it actually goes well with so many like foods, especially the kind of foods, especially the kind of foods that are like celebratory. I mean, I think in terms of, I like, opening up oysters. I think in terms of caviar, even though I'd probably, go with ice cold vodka. I mean, I guess the point that I'm making, or what you made actually, and I just want to reinforce the importance of it, is not to pigeonhole champagne into the into the aperitif, into the pre-meal category, but rather to consider, and by the way, and dessert too. I think about like having chocolate truffles, right?
Yes, absolutely. There's it works with dessert, and there's also you can get some lightly sweet sparkling wines that would work with kind of like fruit, tarts, that sort of thing, pies. So really, you can drink sparkling wine from start to finish if you so choose.
I like that. Okay, so tell us, if you will, what do we buy? Again, I guess you're going to say to me, well, it depends on what your price point is. But like as an example, if you had if you were feeling like you had plenty of cash on you recommend some champagnes, and then those some that are lovely, but within a more of a $20 or $25 or $30, whatever the budget ranges are that are natural in that category.
Sure. Well, there's really two big dividing lines in sparkling wine. The first is non-vintage, or a blend of multiple vintages.
Good.
And on the other side, vintage dated bottling. So what we mean by that is thinking about the category starting in Champagne, which is one of the most northerly wine regions in the world. They had a lot of bad vintages back in the day, and so they would blend good harvest and lesser harvest together to try and create a consistent wine each year, and that brought the style of non-vintage sparkling wine. Then vintage dated bottling from a specific harvest, just 1 year with the year on the bottle. Those are from really outstanding, very special years that were just a terrific harvest, and the winemaker wanted to capture something, a special character there. So when you're talking about price point in sparkling wine, you're usually looking at less money for a non-vintage version and more money for a vintage version.
Right.
Part of that is because non-vintage is not usually aged for as long before release. So the bottle is getting out there to the market a little bit more quickly, and there's more turnover for the company doing it, if you think of kind of the business of being a winery. For vintage bottling, usually they're going to age those longer, so they're sitting on it and holding on to it until basically they think it's ready for release and ready for you to drink it. So they're actually kind of doing you this favor, because here are these people whose whole world revolves around making sparkling wine, and they have the expertise to say, okay, it's time. People should start drinking this now. So, if you're looking for something you really want to splurge on, I would say look at a vintage category. And I was kind of reviewing, what we've tasted from Wine Spectator, vintage sparkling wine from all around the world. And I see a lot of 2008s and 2009s are current right now. These are two great vintages in Champagne, but also from a lot of other places. So you're getting kind of something that's been aged, but they're still very fresh and focused. That would be kind of where I would start people in the splurge category. A lot of vintage champagne goes for more than $100 a bottle. But if you are shopping from domestic sparklers, California, you can find some great examples that would be closer to 50, 60, as well as some from Champagne. And then talking about Cava in Spain, they have their Reserva and Grand Reserva, which again refers to additional aging. A lot of those are vintage dated, and so those would also be more affordable in the kind of $25 to $40 price range.
Yeah, that seems good. Are there particular brand names that we should recognize, or is it more like you go in and you go, I need a Cava?
Well, I think that when you're looking for this kind of Grand Reserva type, Grand Reserva and Reserva category, I think you could look for some certain samples, but you kind of have to see what they have available to you.
Right.
From Spain, I would probably recommend, if you can find it, there's a great producer called Recaredo. But some others are Paraspalta, Periventura, Verventos. So, just a few names to throw out there and look for out in the market.
Okay. But I mean, the point is that if you wanted to do this thing in a way that was good value for the money, certainly going with the cavas, especially those that are reserve cavas. And by the way, do they also, I hate to ask a dumb question, but I mean, are there vintages in cavas as well, or they're all non-vintage?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to clarify, I think like the Reserva and Grand Reserva, those are probably going to be a little bit more expensive and would be vintage dated.
Okay, cool.
But there is cava that is non-vintage, as well. And that's definitely the value that I think we all are familiar with seeing the more kind of $10 to $12 price cava. So that's a great place to look for value in general. And those will usually be non-vintage.
Got it.
So, but if you're looking for other places, $20 or under, there's a ton of sparkling wine. Usually, I've never seen a champagne for under $20 unless you're looking at one of the tiny little baby bottles.
Right.
If you're looking for a full-size bottle, though, I would look to elsewhere in France. So you have to get sparkling wine from Champagne is champagne. Anywhere else in France, pretty much it's called Cremant. And then Cremant de Bourgogne, Cremant de Loire, Cremant d'Alsace, basically named for whatever region it's from. And these can be really terrific values, usually in kind of the $15 to $25 price range.
Yeah, it's nice.
And they're made the same way champagne is, but usually using whatever are the grapes of the region that they're from.
Yeah. That's a great idea, the Cremant. And, while we're on that, also a quick one before I ask you about sparkling, other sparkling wines. What's the right temperature for champagne to serve?
Well, I think that, probably most people are going to have it out of their fridge. I personally, because we have temperature controlled, cooling units, I usually have it at about 47 degrees, which is a little bit warmer than what most people's fridges would be, which would be around 40 degrees. Mm-hmm. But I'm also tasting it, and I'm really looking for flavor and expression, and being a little bit warmer helps that. So it kind of depends on, I think we'd all agree that when champagne sparkling wine gets too warm, probably it's not quite as much fun on the palate.
Right.
So it depends on, I guess, how quickly you think you're going to drink that glass of champagne or sparkling wine.
Gotcha. Now, the next question is just a shift over, and I feel like we've talked about it before, but I want to do it again because I like bubbles. Right. And so it could be a champagne. It could be a cava. It could be a cremant. These are the ones that we've talked about thus far. But let's talk about just bubbles in general because, and I'm thinking of, and I'm not suggesting anything other than these are sparkling options to consider. One being, for example, the Shiraz, the other being, for example, your Lambruscos. What's your general state of mind about those sparkling wines?
Well, I was actually going to, mention that again in that under $20 category. So this is a price point when you're thinking about sparkling wine from Italy, where Prosecco really dominates. Right. But what really overperforms at that price point is Lambrusco. You get some really terrific deals on Lambrusco in the kind of $18 to $22 range, and these are, some of the higher scoring wines at that price point among sparkling wines. So they, I think the thing about sparkling Shiraz from Australia also does very well and around this price point, and Lambrusco, is that they may not be for everybody because they're definitely more distinctive flavors with kind of the dark cherry and berry fruit, herb and spice. But it's a really great structure to pair with food. So I think that if you're looking to really continue, and if you like this idea of doing sparkling wine all the way through the meal, but adding in a Lambrusco or a sparkling Shiraz somewhere a little bit further along when you have some heavier, stronger dishes is a really great idea.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Allison, because you actually said the word, stronger berry, fruit, all that kind of food related. Like these are super appealing to me. Like when I discovered kind of the first time I had a sparkling Shiraz, I was like, whoa, this is so for me. I mean, I love it because I like the cherry. I like the flavor profile of it, and it does do well with food. So those are exciting for me. What did I want to ask you? Oh, it's a small point, but that's part of this here. What's the kind of ultimate? Because I don't think everybody has it, but like, what's the ultimate glassware to serve like, champagne or a sparkling wine? What does that want to look like?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It was something I was going to point out. So everybody, I think, thinks of champagne and sparkling wine in the flutes, and I know that these are great for parties. And the thing is, when you are tasting anything out of a flute, put white wine or red wine in there, you can't taste it as much. They're narrow. They don't let you smell the wine. They don't let you really develop the flavors that much in the glass. So what we recommend at Spectator is to taste everything and drink everything out of real wine glasses. So white wine glasses for your white sparkling wines. Sometimes I would switch to like a Burgundy or a Pinot Noir glass for a rosé. Or for a richer champagne or sparkling wine. But basically, it is a wine, so put it in the right wine glass. And even just a more basic wine glass is an improvement over a flute, I would say.
I love that. That's why I love having you on, by the way, not only for your expertise, but like this is literally, there are learnings here in terms of both not only what in general to buy and what the alternatives are, but how to serve it and also that what we talked about before. It's appropriateness throughout the meal. Okay, let's play a game that I feel also we played last time I was with you, which is I'll throw out a food like a holiday food, especially one I'm contemplating serving. You'll see where my taste deviates into, and
okay.
and you go ahead and go, oh, what would be good to drink with that? Okay, so here's one for you. You ready? I got like
so are we sticking to sparkling wine, or can we open it up to whites, to reds, etc.?
Listen, here's what my feeling is. You are the boss. I'm going to choose the food. You choose the wine. I don't care where it comes from.
Sounds good.
I mean, you're good here. So I feel like, and this is really weird for me. I've only done it once or twice, but I do kind of love it. You can order like a spiral ham, like a Virginia honey baked ham. What are we drinking with that?
So, I think that actually Lambrusco might be a great option for that. But I also kind of immediately go to a kind of richer, more structured rosé. So we think about rosé from Provence, and it has that nice, pale, creamy pink color. If you go to the Rhone Valley, which is kind of just immediate neighbor, there's an all rosé appellation called Tavel, Tavel. Right. Uh-huh. And these wines are kind of like a darker, more intense rosé color. They have a little bit more structure to them, but they still have all those kind of rosé flavors that you love. So I think for something like ham, a Tavel would be pretty much perfect.
I dig. Okay, good. You're invited. Now, I have, and I maybe this shouldn't really be a surprise. I have an oyster supplier, an oyster farmer out of Rhode Island that comes to the city a couple of times over holiday season with his annual harvest. So, if I were going to be shucking oysters, Allison, what would be the best thing to drink with them?
Well, I think that you pretty much hit the nail on the head earlier. I think champagne and sparkling wine is a natural pairing. I would particularly recommend, a personal favorite for me is a Blanc de Blanc.
Okay.
It's made entirely from Chardonnay. And I think that you really get, there's just something about kind of like the mineral character that you find a lot with Blanc de Blanc champagne, along with the salty brininess of oysters, that they just kind of like play off of each other. So that's great. So I would say definitely sparkling wine. And then if you're looking for something specific, a Blanc de Blanc champagne.
I dig. Thank you for that. And also, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I'm a sucker for Sancerre, but I can't tell you it's because I know what I'm doing. I just know that generally when I'm drinking it, I'm happy, and I like having it with oysters. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Great acidity, great minerality, two things that we find in oysters as well.
Okay, now, because we have New Year's coming up, I'm starting to think about what would be the most kind of overindulgent, spare no expense treat, and I have caviar in my mind. What are we drinking with the caviar? And I don't mind if you tell me it's vodka, because that's what I'm having.
Yeah, I mean, vodka, going back again to champagne, definitely. And then I think of something classic like a white Burgundy or a Chablis maybe. So again, I like the idea of something that has good acidity and definition to it, but like a nice range of flavors too, and seeing the complement between kind of the earthiness and saltiness of caviar with something that has fruit and mineral character to it.
All right, and main course, I'm thinking, and I'm jumping around here, but I'm thinking, what if we had some lobster? And I'm not talking about lobster in any kind of I'm a purist, so I'm not talking about any kind of cream sauce or any kind of noise or breadcrumbs, all that. No, I like a nice steamed lobster, drawn butter. What should we drink with that?
Well, I'm trying to think of I think you could go, I'm trying to think of a red wine because I feel like I keep hitting these sparkling wine and white wine for you. So I think with lobster, you could certainly enjoy a Pinot Noir. But again, I kind of go back to Chardonnay. It's just a classic pairing for lobster. So that could be back to white Burgundy. But then I would also really look towards California, for Chardonnay from maybe a cooler climate area like Santa Lucia or, Santa Rita Hills. And then, you mentioned the Loire Valley, and Sancerre is a Sauvignon Blanc based wine, but they have Vouvray from the Loire Valley, which is Chenin Blanc based. And that also could be really wonderful with lobster, I think, because it has, this kind of natural sweetness that would, sweetness not in terms of like sugar, but juicy sweetness that would complement the sweetness of lobster, but then usually really great acidity as well.
Yes.
So that would kind of cleanse the palate and then get you ready to dump your next piece of lobster in the butter.
I love it. I love a Vouvray. Now, you'll be glad to know that I have a couple that might lend themselves to something red or
Okay.
Okay, so I have a formula in my cooking that I can define in 6 words, Allison. Most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. And so one of the things that I will make, and I don't even have to fry them, and they only require 2 ingredients, is like buffalo chicken wings. So you're getting the dark meat on the chicken, you're getting the crispy skin, and you're getting the spiciness from the Frank's hot sauce. What are we drinking with that? And it could be beer. I'm okay with that.
Well, I have to say it's pretty hard to think beyond beer in that situation.
Good.
But if you are really, if I'm, going to be a purist and go for wine here, I would go to Alsace, to a Pinot Gris or a Gewürztraminer, probably a Pinot Gris that has a little bit of residual sugar to it. And what I mean by that is it's not completely dry. It's a little bit more juicy. And I think that would really actually, particularly Pinot Gris, sometimes from Alsace has this kind of like underneath smoky character under the dried fruit or the juicy fruit. And I feel like that was like kind of the smokiness of the wings might be a good thing.
No joke, by the way, but another reason that I like talking to you so much is because we actually, think along the same lines. I will tell you that the house wine here at my place is Pinot Gris. It has been for, probably 10 years my favorite white, because it's the one for me, because of that residual sweetness that you mentioned, that pairs the best with so many different foods. So I do love it for that. I love that. And here's the final one for you. My Italian friends do at Christmas time the Feast of the 7 Fishes. So there will be 7 different fish and seafood dishes on the table, but we're only going to choose one wine to have with them. What is it going to be?
Ooh, that's hard. I think you think fish, and so your first thought is white wine, of course. But when you're talking about 7 different fishes, you might have something that's a little bit richer. So given that this is an Italian festival, and Italy is so about keeping it simple, but having food and wine that goes together, I'm going to go with something from Italy, a light, medium-bodied red, and I think there's two choices. Something would be something that, probably most people can find is a good Chianti Classico from a vintage like 2015 or 2016, which are current on the market right now. Both are great vintages in Italy overall. And these are just nice balanced wines that, again, have that acidity we're looking for when we're pairing food, but not too much weight, and they won't overpower. Or from Italy, you might go north and look for a Nebbiolo from the Langhe region in Piedmont. Again, light to medium bodied with some structure and acidity, but not too much. And I think you could probably drink either one of these very successfully all the way through the meal.
Brilliant. Now, before I take you to our final subject, which is kind of top 100 that Wine Spectator does, let me just throw in a little aside here. If you happen to be in or around New York City, and I say this to you, Allison, but it actually applies to anybody. I wrote a review recently of a new restaurant on East 27th Street here in Manhattan called Ristoro del Cinghiale, which is the restaurant of basically wild boar. It's the restaurant at this point, I'm guessing, is probably about 2 months old. It's owned and operated by the man next door, whose name I completely forgot, but most importantly, the restaurant next door that he's run for 24 years is I Trulli, which specializes in the food of Puglia. Yeah. And now he opens up Ristoro del Cinghiale, which is going to specialize in the wines of Tuscany. And it turns out that he returns every 6 weeks to Tuscany because his family owns vineyards over there, and he sends back Chianti. I had the meal. I had the wild boar. It was fantastic. And so I say to you or to anybody that's in the New York City area looking for kind of a true taste of Tuscany, there on East 27th Street is Ristoro del Cinghiale. So I just want to throw that in. Now, that said, we're talking about the top 100. Tell people about the top 100 wines brought to you by Wine Spectator.
Yeah, well, these, I feel like this is kind of a natural wrap up because we've been talking about large concepts and Lambrusco as a category, Tavel as a category. Our top 100 is basically on newsstands today, and it's our December 31st issue everywhere. The 100 most exciting wines that we found out of the roughly 16,000 reviewed by the magazine over the course of 2018. Mm-hmm. So talking about, the ever-expanding world of wine, here's a list of 100. This year we have more than 15 different wine regions that contribute to the list. So really something out there for everyone who loves all different wine regions and all different wine styles. And there's really 4 things we look at when we're trying to choose these wines. It's the quality based on the score in our tastings, the price point, the availability, and X factor. So what made them exciting to us, and what is the story behind the wine that we think really helped them stand out? And basically, we're doing a lot of thought and a lot of work to come up with these 100 wines every year. And when I'm talking about Lambrusco or Tavel, it would take too long for me to make specific recommendations for every wine shop in America. But here are 100 wines that have good availability. And if you're looking for some specific recommendations, this is a great resource.
What issue are we talking about there? Is it one that people can pick up like on a newsstand? Is that the easiest way to access it, or you go to winespectator.com? Yeah.
Multiple ways. It's December 31st issue. It is on newsstands today, right. So you would see it with the big top 100. You can go to our website and access the full list via our website. And if you have our Wine Ratings Plus app, you can also have that, again, at your fingertips. The whole list is there as well.
Well, I just want to once again thank you deeply and genuinely from the bottom of my heart. I love having you on. You are I consider you my wine expert on retainer. It's great.
I do answer texts. Feel free.
It's fantastic, and I really appreciate you doing this. I hope that you have a fantastic holiday season, and I will remind people that they can pick up the Wine Spectator magazine right now at newsstands. It's the end of December 31 issue with the top 100 wines, or go to winespectator.com, because you did mention before, and I think it's important for people to know that the app for Wine Spectator is available as well, which gives ratings for, thousands and thousands of wine. So again, I thank you. It's a treat to talk to you. I hope you have a great holiday.
You too. Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. So, I always love having Allison on. I do. I mean that because I find her not only knowledgeable but easy to talk to. Really knows her stuff, and I feel like I learned a couple of things. No, right? I mean, whether it's going to be the champagne, if you got the especially vintage champagne, if you got the money, or it could be the Cremant, which is produced in the method of champagne, but throughout the rest of France, or perhaps it's just something sparkling, like out of Spain, the cava. These are all options for this holiday season. Allison also tells us, and I think it's worth remembering, that champagne is not just like, what do they call? It's not just for dinner anymore. Whose campaign was that? I totally forget. But anyway, champagne is not just the pre-dinner celebratory aperitif. It is literally possible to enjoy a sparkling product throughout your meal. And I think we talked about some alternatives there as well. Okay, so great. Thank you for that. Hey, listen, one of the other things, I know those who listen, that this is the All You Can Eat, is the podcast about deliciousness. And what if that deliciousness wasn't necessarily something that you consumed? What if it wasn't something that you ate? Have you ever heard, seriously, somebody asked me once, how was your sleep? And I said, it was a delicious sleep. This is a roundabout way of telling you here that I also was sent a product known as the NODPOD, NODPOD. And I'll be damned, I sleep like a baby. I don't think that I can overstate the importance, the value of a good night of sleep. You all know what I'm talking about. Do you ever fall asleep and then wake up uninterrupted 8 hours later? It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, man, doesn't that feel good? Versus waking up 2 or 3 times, or sleeping for 4 hours, sleeping for 6 hours, not having a restful sleep, but rather having a fitful sleep. That just blows. But you know what doesn't blow? You know what's great? You know what's exciting? Closing your eyes and waking up the next morning 8 hours later. Now listen, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it happens with frequency, maybe it happens infrequently. But here's the thing. I put on these NOD pods, weighted sleep therapy. Allows you to sleep comfortably in any position, but it's predicated on the idea that your body responds to gentle, constant pressure. You know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you have a headache, man, and somebody puts their thumb on your temple right there, and you go, oh, stay right there. That's good. That feels good. That's why hugs feel good and why babies experience relief when they're swaddled. This is so true. This is so true. Weighted sleep therapy. You know what I'm talking about. Even those heavy blankets that people are using. It's like when you have a kid, a baby, and you bring it home from the hospital with that little kind of cloth, and then you wrap the baby in that thing so they're all wrapped in there tight. I used to call my child Mushu because I felt like every time I put her in that, I was rolling up a Mushu pancake. Anyway, I digress. It's just that weighted sleep therapy it claims to naturally reduce stress and anxiety while promoting deep, restful sleep. It's like a weighted blanket for your face. I tried it. I tried it again and again and again and again, and I don't want to be without it. That's the bottom line. $29.99 for a nod pad. Pick the color you want. Put it on at night. And wake up about 8 hours later. Because it's dark and it's comfortable and it's great. I love it. You'll know from me what I call the full disclosure. They sent it to me. I tried it. I like it. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's the truth. If they were paying me to promote it, I would let you know. I could come on and tell you I thought it was a piece of garbage. Instead, I recommend, because I am your recommendation engine, my friends, I recommend the NodPod. I think you can find it at nodpod.com. How easy is that? The remaining time that we have, I will, I did want to mention, I don't know if I have time to get through them both. You want to start buying presents this holiday season, go to cracktoffee.com. cracktoffee.com. Why? Because this stuff is like crack. It's unbelievable. Crack, snack, repeat, toasted pecan, toasted almond, coffee, toffee, toasted bourbon pecan, whatever. Cracktoffee.com. I love this stuff straight up out of the bag. It's addictive. Also, I like crumbling it in little tiny pieces on ice cream. And I will give you one other, because it's holiday season. And you're going to go to Fresh Flowers LLC. Now, those flowers are not WERS, but rather FLOURS. I love Fresh Flowers, FLOURS, LLC.com. Pick yourself up a butter cookie, a rugelach, a blondie, a biscotti, an oatmeal raisin, peanut butter fortune cookie. Put it in, choose your packaging, choose your ribbon color, choose your own personal bag. Is it for love? Is it for a wedding? Is it for a bat mitzvah? Is it for Christmas? And send it off. Great product, great company. Happy to recommend freshflowersllc.com. This is Robert Rosenthal. This is All You Can Eat, episode number 37. You want to get some holiday treats this season? Here's another gift idea, less than $10, short order dad. My book, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free on Amazon, short order dad. Ladies and gentlemen, a treat to be with you. I'll be back next week at 8 p.m. We have more guests showing up next week. It's going to be interesting and fun and fabulous. This is All You Can Eat. Remember, my friends, life is short.